I'm recording this staff only from JFK Airport on my way to Rebellion on his York site. And this is the DAF Yomi for 21 Adar, which is Sunday, which is the York side of Rebellion. So we're going to start from the Mishnah on Lamed Beis Amud Aleph on 32a. It says the Mishnah, Matzah Barefes, that if you find an animal that was lost, if you find it in the refes, in chayava, then you're not obligated to return it. But if you find it, if you find it in the public domain, chayava, then you're obligated to return it. On Lama Beis and off on 32a. If the animal or the lost object was in a cemetery and you're a Kohen, well, you tameh, and you're not obligated or you're not allowed to become tameh. You're not allowed to enter into the cemetery to get the lost object. If your father tells you to become tameh for the object, or if your father tells you don't return it, do not listen to it. Harak v'tan, I feel arba v'chamisha pa'amim chayim. Let's say you unloaded it and then loaded it, unloaded it and then loaded it, even 4 or 5 times, you're going to be obligated to keep doing it. As it says, Azov Tazim. Halach v'yashav lo. Let's say he went and then the guy sat down and he said, V'amar hol v'alecha mitzvah. He says, listen, it's your mitzvah. If you want to help me unload it, prog, and unload it. Then we say pater. Then he doesn't have to do it. He's exempt. As it states, azov to azov. As it says, imo, with him. If the person who was returning the lost object was and then he wasn't helping because it was his object, but he was elderly or he was sick, then chayiv, then he's going to be obligated. Mitzvah Torah lifrok. It's a mitzvah for on the Torah to help unload the animal of a low liton, but not to load up the animal. Rabbi Shimon Omer, afliton. Rabbi Shimon says even to load up the animal of the mitzvah. Rabbi Yossi Aguli Omer, Imhaya Alav Yeser Amaso in Zakukol. Rabbi Yossi Aguli says if the animal was weighed down with something that was too heavy for him, then he's not required to unload it. As it states, Tachas Masoy, underneath the burden, Masoy sheyachol la'amodo, a burden that is able to withstand. Amarava refesh sha'amru, this stable, which they said that if you found it, you're not obligated. That's ena mita, ena mishmeres. That's a stable that doesn't cause the animal to wander away because it has nothing in it. But at the same time, it's not mishmeres. It's not guarded. Ena mita, it doesn't cause that if it's something that's not going to cause the animal to run away, you're not chayiv to return it. Mitiktani, eno chayiv. It says not obligated. The eno mishameres, and how do we know it's not guarded? It's just from listening. Eno chayiv. And the fact that it needs to say that you're not obligated. If you're going to say that you are obligated, hashta mishtachra. If it was found outside, you would take it inside. If it's found inside, you need to tell us that you should leave it there. We must be talking about that it's not a place that's still guarded, and still you don't have to return it. That if you find it in the barn, you're not obligated to return it. That's if it's within the limits of the city. Which will be in the public domain. If it be in the public domain, even if it's within the city, you're going to be obligated. Some take the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak on the last clause, which says, in the public domain, you're obligated. And I'm ready to return it. That's where you find it outside the club. They called it the refes. If it was in the refes, that people made it Nami in the refes, even if it was outside the club, you're also not obligated. The base of Pharos goes in the cemetery. If it's in the cemetery, you're not obligated to, you don't become tamei for it. How do you know if your father tells you to become tamei or your father tells you don't return it, you don't listen to him. Because it says, Ishi Nova, his father and his mother you shall feel, and the Shabbos you shall guard. Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, which means Kulcham Chayavim Mitzvodi. All of you are obligated in my honor. Time of the cost of Rahmana, Shabbat take the Shema. The reason is because the Torah says you have to guard my Shabbos. However, not for the case, Avamina, I would say Tzais the way. Means the only reason why you don't listen to your father is because the Torah says that Shabbat like the Shema. But when that's the case, you'd have to listen to him. I say, I will to say, I say. Listening to your father is a positive commandment, and there's a will to say that say telling you not to listen. Well, I see not to become tamei. Well, I say to say that say. And the positive commandment should not overrule the say and the will to say. So the Gemara says, no, we're not going to say that. It's just we need it because Sagadai Kamina, you might have thought, since honoring your father or mother is compared to honoring Hashem, as it says, it says honor your father and mother, and it says honor your Hashem from your wealth. I might think you're supposed to listen to him. So much more, the low wish man. You learn from here, you're not to make the list. Mitzvah from the Torah lifrok of a load. There's a mitzvah from the Torah to unload, but there's no mitzvah to load up. My of a load. What does it mean? There's no mitzvah to load up. If you want to say it's no mitzvah to load up, why would you say there's no mitzvah? It says to unload, or it says to load. There's a mitzvah from the Torah to load up for free, but it's not a mitzvah from the Torah to do te'ina for free. It's a mitzvah from the Torah to do prika for free, to unload for free, but it's not a mitzvah from the Torah to unload for free. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon says also to unload for free is a mitzvah. Also to load up for free is a mitzvah, says Reb Shimon. And Tanino the Tanur Rabbanon. We have a brisa that says this prika b'chinam tina mislar. Reb Shimon says do b'chinam. Reb Shimon says you have to do both for free. My time, my other Rabbanon. What's the reason why the Rabbanon say you have to do both for free? These sakadai talk Reb Shimon. If you want to say the halacha is like Reb Shimon, then lift of Rahmana ti'ina will buy prika, because the Torah could have just said ti'ina when you wouldn't require prika. But on Mina, I would have said ma ti'ina delays beitzar ba'alachayim like a concern this chayev, just like ti'ina where there is no tzar ba'alachayim. And there's no pain to the animal, and there's no loss of money, and you're still obligated. Prika, the isbeit tsar ba'achayim chesar kisel tlosh. In Prika, where there is tsar ba'achayim, there is a loss of money. For sure, that should be the case. So it says, why did the Torah write it? That Prika is unloading is for free, and Tina loading it up is just a payment. Which Rabbi Shimon says, my time. What's the reasoning? Rabbi Shimon says, the psukim are not clear. He says the psukim are not clear. Why are they not clear? Here it says you should crouch it under its burden. And and there it says the animal's falling on the road, which means the that both it and the bags are on the road and need help lifting up. Reb Shimon says, no from Bederech, inu v'tanayo. It's on the ground and its package is on it. Amar Rabba taught, from both of them we're going to learn that the concept of causing pain to the animal is deraisa, is biblical. Why? On top of them, a base and a base. I feel Reb Shimon will come even Reb Shimon only says it because the pasuk is not clear. But if the pasuk would be clear, direction and kavachomer. We would say kavachomer. Isn't it? Why is it a kavachomer? Isn't it because it's tsar b'chayim? Or says no. No, maybe it's the kavachomer because of chitzar and kiss, loss of money. This is what he's saying. Matina delays b'chitzar and kiss, just like loss of loading something up where there's no loss of money, and you're chayav prika these b'chitzar and kiss, but kol shaking loading it up where there is a loss of money for sure to be the case. Where it says tina in b'chitzar and kiss, how do you know by tina there's no loss of money? Are we talking about a case that are we talking about a case where in the meantime he's not going to be able to go to the market and lose money? Or or maybe robbers will come and take it. Now the Gemara goes to the question, how do we know whether or not causing pain to an animal is a biblical prohibition or rabbinic? How do we know this? The Katani safe because it says the concluding clause. Rabbi Yosef says in my Amma. So if you have more than its burden, in zakako, you're not obligated. You're not obligated to take it out, as it says tachas maso sheyachal mobile. So that's what Rabbi Yosef says. If it's too much, you don't have to take it. My time, and what's the reason? That the Tanna Kama says you have to do it. Is it because he says it's a biblical law? And the Lord says no. Dilma, perhaps the tachas masel. That's what their argument is. Rabbi Yosef says we make this drasha. Burden sheyachal ambo. Rabbanan saring lo darshin and tachas. Lord says, I'll give you the next question. How do we know that Tzar B'Chaim is lab there, right? I don't know that causing pain to an animal is not biblical. The Ketani, because it says, Reisha halach v'yashavlo. It says in the first clause, if the guy goes on his own and he says, oh, the lacha mitzvah the front broke, you unload it, Potter, you're exempt. It says, these suffer that. If you say, Tzar B'Chaim is there, right? So, Mali so Amari Bahade, Mali Lesa Bahardanga. So, why do we care if the owner's there? If it's a biblical commandment, what do we care if the owner's there? You should have to unload the animals. The Gemara says, you're right. Oh, I'm sorry about Chaim with your rights. It really is biblical. Me savris potter. When we say you're exempt, doesn't mean potter damri. It says potter b'china. Means you don't have to. You're not paid for it. B'chai b'sar. You have to do it for payment. Kisomar b'adei avagabe b'chinam. Kisomar b'adei avagabe b'sar. The Lord says, no, it means that if the owner is with you, he has to pay. If the owner is not with you, he has to pay you. But if he's with you, you have to give him free. The Lord says, well, I'm sorry about Chaim there, right? So we really say that. Let me say, right? Perhaps, Behemoth so the cover the top of the Behemoth Israel. It says you have to deal with an animal of an idolater just like it's an animal of a Jew. Oh, yeah, right? So if you say it's biblical, that's why you have to deal with it like a Jew, to Behemoth Israel. And yeah, right? The Rabbi writes if you say it's not biblical, why do you have to deal with it? Why do you have to deal with the animal? The whole reason you have to deal with it is because otherwise it will cause enmity, it will cause problems. Yeah, this is also logical. It says it's carrying non-kosher wine, then you don't have to deal with it. Because you could say, Rashi says, I don't want to touch the non-kosher wine. Now, right? So if you say it's not biblical, that's why you don't touch it. If you say it's biblical, why do you not have to deal with it? Where it says, this is what it means. To load up non-kosher wine, you're not obligated. And I'll stop here because I'm running out of energy. But a big shkoyach. Thank you for joining. And